Hello, Corinne. I was looking through your music and things for your makeup lesson today. One, I can't remember if we've done a digital makeup lesson before or not. It doesn't seem like we have. If we have and I've forgotten, I apologize. I'm just going to go over the ground rules, kind of, sort of. Let you know that when we do the digital makeup lesson, I usually only say things, like once, because you can go back and you can review things. You can stop it, you can come back, you can play along with it later, you can do it in parts, however it works best for you. This lesson will not last 45 minutes. You're welcome. Would be an intensely long makeup lesson if that were the case. It seems really dark in here all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Distractible. As far as these lesson goes, they are shorter because you can't interact with me. So what I'm going to do is try to give you the best tips possible for you to be as prepared as possible for next week. And when I was looking through your pieces today, I was thinking that probably starting on the jingle bells would be the best thing to do because we haven't worked on it yet. And so I'll give you a good starting place for this. Not only do you have this shot of me, hi, but you also have the other shot of the keys. It may be back far enough that you'll be able to follow all of the things in your piece. Yours is pretty wide range, so we'll see. We'll do the best that we can with that. All right, so remember that you have to have the secret password in order for your practice days to count. The secret password this week is going to be purple spoons in order for your practice days to count, okay? That way I know that you watched the video. All right, so we're going to be working on that Jingle Bells. It's in the style of Scott Joplin. So Scott Joplin, I guess you don't really want to see the keys while I talk to you. Scott Joplin was an early American music composer. So he is really just, his name goes in with ragtime music. Ragtime is an early form of jazz music in the United States, and they currently believe that jazz is the only American music form ever created to date. All of the other forms of music that came before jazz all came uniquely from some other place, mostly Europe or Africa. And so it isn't until we get jazz that they say it's truly American. But even when they're talking about jazz as the truly American music art form, they're quick to point out that jazz is really just a combination of a whole lot of styles, which makes it American in the sense that it's a little bit Irish and a little bit Scottish and a whole lot of Jamaican and a whole lot of African, and there are all these different cultural influences that happened right around the turn of the century. So ragtime music was very popular right around 1900. So when we're talking about turn of the century, we're not talking about this one. We're talking about the last one, right around 1900. So you had lots of immigration from lots of parts of the world, and you had people interacting with African Americans more because slavery had been abolished, and so now those people, the next generation, were going out and they were trying to find other kinds of jobs, which makes sense, right? And so you get these other forms of music when they kind of all get together. Ragtime music is extremely rhythmic. It is syncopated. Syncopation is the word we use for music where the strong accent falls off strong beats. So usually we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right? But in syncopation, you could have 1, 1, 2, and 4, 1 and 2, and 4, right? And so since the accent is falling on weak beats, it's called syncopation, okay? Anytime an accent falls on the weak beat instead of the typical strong beat, syncopation, okay? That gives you a little bit of information about it. I'd say also that ragtime music is really one of the first forms of American music marketing. The player piano was developed right around the same time. Pianos were really becoming a popular symbol in America right around 1900. The piano became a symbol of status, of having arrived. It's like today we have the car, right? A really nice car is like, hey, they have a good job, things are good, right? But at 1900, people didn't have a car, right? They had a piano in their parlor. Life was very different. They could entertain themselves. And the piano, believe it or not, was actually the first item that you could purchase from the bank on a monthly installment plan. So banks began offering loans for items with the piano. So everybody wanted one. Very few people could afford one. And the payment plans for pianos at banks became a thing, which is kind of amazing, right? Today we can pay out cars. Back then it was very common to pay off a piano. In America, right around that time, we had like a couple hundred builders, really, truly, because everybody wanted a piano, everybody wanted to learn how to play it. And so that actually is one of the, my phone keeps going off, that's one of the problems we have today is the majority of the instruments that are currently on the market, those old pianos that you see at garage sales, things like that, they're 120 years old. It's a long time. 120 years old. A lot of these instruments, even if you took very good care of it, that's a long time. So odds are they're not in very good shape anymore. We have very few builders in America today. Creates issues, right? Changes the market completely. So how does the piano become one of the, or ragtime become one of the early marketing symbols? Well, the piano is like status, right? And so if you have one at the front of your business, then that's great. And probably people aren't going to come and buy from your market if you're playing right. It doesn't really make you want to go and buy whatever they're selling. But oh, that's different, right? It's upbeat, it's happy, it's exciting, yes? And we get composers like Scott Joplin at that point, who's African American. He was white and black, mixed race, we would say today. We get more people like him. They're out and they're playing because they could get a job sitting and playing for hours and hours and hours and hours, and their music ends up on those player piano reels that are invented within a few years of this musical style too. It's very catchy, right? So even though it's exciting, it's not usually music that you're going to hear in your parlor, in your living room. It is music that you're going to hear at a business, right? It draws attention, it pulls in a crowd, that sort of thing. So, with all that history behind it, let's go ahead and look at the actual piece. Okay, so we have our syncopation here in the very first measure. You see it in the tied E going down, the tied E, right? Okay, so let's see, what does that actually sound like? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? might not be as comfortable as I am pulling your hand out from under. That's okay, right? Just make sure that you go ahead and you pull your hand out as smoothly as possible so that you can move on down the line. Then in measure 3, you have those sixths going up. They are going up by half step. Half, half. In your left hand, you just repeat the last G that you had, right? But you probably played that last G with your fourth finger, and when you repeat it, you want your thumb to play it. So make sure that you mark that, okay? We're going to get stuck. Uh-oh.